I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being with us tonight. This evening, the Board of Education is recognizing another outstanding group of Parkway students and schools. We're honoring National Merit Commended and semifinalist students, a National Hispanic Scholar, a National Leader in Me Lighthouse School, and our state and national schools of character. In addition, the board participated in a savory food challenge prior to the meeting, and we'll learn the results of that competition. And it was delicious. First, I would like to invite Dr. Chelsea Watson, the Deputy Superintendent, to begin the recognition of our National Merit students.
Good evening, President Todd, Vice President Hopper, members of the board, Dr. Marty, Mrs. Stover. 45 students have been recognized, 45 Parkway students have been recognized by the National Merit Scholarship Corporation, an independent non-for-profit organization that conducts competitions for recognition for undergraduate scholarships through two programs, the National Merit Scholarship Program and the National Achievement Scholarship Program. The National Merit Scholarship Program is an annual academic competition which identifies seniors at the top of their graduating class. Commended students placed among the top 5% of more than 1.5 million students who enter the competition by taking the preliminary SAT, National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test. More than 1.5 million juniors and over 2,100 high schools entered the program by taking the qualifying test, which serves as the initial screener. About 16,000 students, representing less than 1% of U.S. high school seniors, qualified as National Merit semifinalists. So guess how many Parkway students earned that? 21. 21 Parkway students earned National Merit semifinalist status. An additional 24 Parkway students are recognized as commended. National Merit semifinalists have an opportunity to qualify for nearly 7,600 Merit Scholarship Awards worth over $31 million that will be offered in the spring. So please join me in recognizing these amazing students, our National Merit semifinalists, and students recommended as commended. So this evening, each building principal will come forward and call students by name. Please note that some of our students may not be here this evening due to the other many commitments that our students have, but our administrators, our principals, will still recognize them tonight. So first, will Dr. Tim McCarthy please come forward to recognize the Central High School students.
Thank you, Dr. Watson, and on behalf of all of the high school principals to the board, thank you so very much for taking time this evening to recognize and honor these wonderful students. Central High is proud to recognize 16 students, and I'll begin with our students who have earned commended status. Students, as we call your names, please come forward. You can start with Dr. Marty, then make your way down with the board, shaking hands to your left. Then we'll take a picture under the Parkway sign over there. Miss Kelly will be doing those honors. First up, Noah Berry. Sure if Noah's here, but we're gonna applaud Emma Cantor. Lee Faust. Wesley Henshaw. Ryan Sellers. Mary Zhu. Ashley Zhao. And our semifinalists, Eileen Chang. Matthew Chen. Leslie Citron. Sunwoo Kang. Andrew Lee. Varsha Morali. Irina Samsonova. She's not here, but her mother is. Felicia Zhao. And Ellie Yang. All right, students, I'm going to come up to take a picture with you. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Tori Kane from North High.
Good evening, and on behalf of North High and the staff, we'd like to congratulate the following students. North High commended Nathaniel Murley, Madeline Sass, and Saloni Sringapore. Again, congratulations, and at this time, Dr. Patrice H. from South High will be talking about her students.
Hello, hello, hello. We are here to recognize the wonderful students from South, and I'd like to start off with our commended students, Veronica Sorg, Catherine Wilson, and then our South High semifinalists, Matthew Christopherson, and Jeffrey Ying. At this time, I'd like to welcome Mario Papillo, Assistant Principal at West High, to announce his students.
Good evening. I'm standing in for Dr. Jeremy Mitchell tonight, who is out of town with a family wedding. But I'm here to recognize the West High students, and we will begin with the commended students. Bhargav Edigarla, Madison Hoffman, Angela Gia, Chance Younger, Rithvik Karthikeyan, Anjali Kumar, Mohammed Kaziz, Keelan Legler, Dennis McMorrow, Dawson Wren, Carson Taylor, and Jason Yang. And the semifinalists from West High, Ronak Bhaskar, Caitlin Chapman, Benjamin Goff, Wansung Lee, Jonathan Ma, Akil Mulakala, Molly Ripper, Nayan Rayu, Kesava Viswanatha, and Mukund Viswanatha.
Next, please welcome Dr. Tim McCarthy, principal at Central High School, to introduce our National Hispanic Scholar.
If I could take just one moment for our National Merit students. If the parents of our National Merit students who are in attendance tonight could please stand so that we may recognize you as well. Congratulations and thank you. The College Board has a number of recognition programs. One in particular is the Hispanic Recognition Program. The College Board reaches out to students who take the PSAT in October of their junior year and score in the top 2.5% among Hispanic and Latino students in the region and have a cumulative GPA of 3.5 or higher by the middle of their junior year. After the College Board contacts the student determines whether or not to apply for this recognition. In September, I received notification from the College Board that all applicants had been evaluated and a Central High student was among this prestigious group. This recognition enables students to highlight their outstanding educational achievements to top colleges and universities. In addition, colleges and universities identify students who receive this recognition as academically exceptional students. It is my honor to recognize David Carrasco Torres this evening.
Next, please welcome Dr. Greg Matheson to introduce the National Leader in Me Lighthouse School.
Good evening, President Todd, Vice President Hopper, members of the board, Dr. Marty, Mrs. Stover. Put that a little closer. There we go. It is with great pleasure that I stand before you to recognize schools that are making a notable difference in our goal of all students being confident and caring learners who are increasingly self-directed, skilled, and persistent as learners. Joining me to share in the accomplishment of our schools is Dr. Erin Schulte, Coordinator of Counseling and Character Education. She's a huge support for our schools and our kids and wanted to be here for tonight's celebration. This evening, we are celebrating the accomplishments of 5 Parkway schools. Tonight, Riverbend Elementary is the recipient of the Lighthouse certification this year. Principal, I might need my glasses on. Principal Jamie Otto and staff members are here tonight to represent their school. I want to talk a little bit about Lighthouse Schools. This certification is a highly regarded standard set by Franklin Covey for their top Leader in Me schools. This certification is evidence that schools have produced outstanding results in school and students' outcomes by implementing the Leader in Me process with fidelity and excellence. In order to become a Lighthouse school, a school must demonstrate elements of core paradigms. Following an extensive day of observations, interviews, and data analysis, along with a review of the Riverbend Elementary School Leader in Me evidence binder, Riverbend has been named a Lighthouse school. The certification review team found following areas of strength for Riverbend. They said, there is evidence that the school as a whole believes that everyone can be a leader, as demonstrated by 100% of students having leadership jobs. Fourth graders using their voice to advocate for student space, called the Tiger Lounge. And third graders spearheaded a service learning project to create kindness kits for the homeless. And fifth graders took charge of a toothbrush recycling project that educated the school and community about the impact on the ocean. Also, 100% of the students made progress toward their personalized literacy goals while tracking lead measures in their leadership notebooks. The school also made a 7% increase in ELA as measured by state assessments. Please join me in congratulating Riverbend Elementary for being named a Lighthouse school. Tonight, we're also honoring schools that have earned the distinction as a state school of character or as a national school of character. These schools are living our Parkway character education commitments. Character education is the intentional effort to develop in young people core ethical and performance values that are widely affirmed across all cultures. Students in these schools feel safe, respected, and connected to those around them, allowing them to thrive academically. Oops, I went too many. There's some pictures for Riverbend. Thrive academically and socially and be motivated to give back to their communities. As Dr. Marvin Berkowitz, who's the co-director of the Center of Character Education and Citizenships at UMSL, often says, it is rocket science. And the schools I present to you this evening understand how intentional we have to be as we guide our students. State schools of character must demonstrate that their focus on character development has had a positive impact on academic achievement, student behavior, and school climate. All of these schools have completed that step in the rigorous character education process. Recognition as a state school of character is a step towards being honored as a national school of character, which this is truly an honor to receive this distinction. Typically takes a year or longer to become a state school of character, with a lot of meetings to do some reflection and understanding of where you are with your core values. In our world, there are commitments. This year, 2 Parkway schools, Central High School and West Middle School, have been named state schools of character by the Character Education Partnership for their dedicated focus on character development. Both of these schools not only live up to the Parkway mission, but they also embody our character education commitments. First, please join me in congratulating Central High, represented tonight by Dr. Tim McCarthy, the principal, as well as several key staff members from Central High School. Joining Central High School with the distinction of being a state school of character is West Middle School, represented by Dr. Annie Miller, for this well-deserved honor. At this time, I would like to introduce our 2 national schools of character. Our first National School Character being recognized tonight is Hannah Woods Elementary. We have principals Dr. Christy Roberts and Assistant Principal Debbie Reed that have joined us tonight. Schools, just like in the state School of Character, first of all, to be national, you have to be a state School of Character. They go through a rigorous application process with site visits, interviews, data review to be considered not only a state school, but also a National School of Character. This process can take several years and is extensive process and a high honor. I want to take a moment real quickly as I reviewed the National School of Character evaluation to say a couple things about Hannah Woods from the evaluators. First, there's a strong buy-in by all staff, faculty, and parents to the mission of the school and their new core character traits. The core values of the school are seen on banners as you enter the school and are posted in each of the classrooms: respect, acceptance, honesty, integrity, and grit. It is evident that the core values are not only promoted, this is the most important piece, but they're followed and embedded in everything that they do. Hannah Woods' recognition as a National School of Character is considered an extraordinary example for other schools to follow. Please join me in celebrating Hannah Woods, Dr. Christy Roberts, and Assistant Principal Debbie Reed. Our next school to be recognized as a National School of Character is McKelvey Elementary. Dr. Kim Cohen is here to accept this honor, and this is a renewal of the National School of Character award that they won previously. No small feat. As I said earlier, there's an extensive review process, and I also want to say a couple things about McKelvey that were said by the national evaluators. First, McKelvey's use of effective proactive measures, positive reinforcement, instructional strategies, and logistical consequences are what made their character education implementation seamless. The school defines character comprehensively to include thinking, feeling, and doing. Staff teach and promote opportunities for students to understand core values, ethical decision-making, and applications to life situations. To make this a little personal, Assistant Principal Jessica Carl stated that she once witnessed their students in public saying, "Hey, that's my school," when they saw their values written around town. The recognition of these Parkway schools and with McKelvey indicate that they have demonstrated high standard of excellence and are role models for other schools. So please join me in congratulating Dr. Kim Cohen and her staff from McKelvey Elementary. Please join me one more time in celebrating Riverbend, Central High, West, Middle, Hannah Woods, McKelvey Elementary for earning these accolades as they live out our Parkway mission. Members of the board, Dr. Marty, thank you for the opportunity to recognize these amazing schools as we continue to build capable, curious, caring, and confident learners. Thank you.
Finally, please welcome Amy Belding, Career and Technical Education Global Studies and World Languages Coordinator. She's got the longest title in the room. To the podium to announce the winners of the Savory Food Challenge. And can I just say that we all ate well. We got to do this a year and a half ago, and my son was one of the participants, and this may have been even better than that time, so it was good.
Competition, yeah. Thank you guys so much. Thank you again for having us. We really pride ourselves in CTE and helping our students respond to an ever-changing world, and for us that means developing the skills. So if you walked in tonight and you smelled like it was a restaurant, that's how it is when you walk into our schools and our students are practicing their culinary and hospitality skills. So tonight was just a really great opportunity for 25 of our students, 25 of the best. They all competed in their school in a slider showdown and a cupcake battle and brought their best guest here. So tonight, the winners were a chimichurri slider from North High, which is great. Kevin Seltzer, the North grad. There was a nice swing there. And then South High was the cupcake winner, and they had a raspberry chocolate cupcake that was pretty good. So both of those schools will get a set of golden utensils sent to their school. And we just really appreciate you guys allowing us to showcase what we're doing in the classrooms. We're so proud of our students and our teachers that support them. So thank you so much.
Thanks once again to all of our students, families, and staff for joining us here tonight. Parents, you have some outstanding children and should be very proud. This time we'll take a brief break and we'll resume the meeting shortly. Thank you.
left it?
Oh, somebody left it. We'll get it. Thank you. Mr. Seltzer. Yeah, we're still going to continue the meeting.
We used to pay, baby. We used to go out for 4 or 5, 6 hours.
Okay, so we are back. Next up is 6.0, additions, corrections, and modifications to the agenda. We have an addition of agenda item 10.25, approval of Bob Rogers' contract for Northeast Middle School. Next, we have citizen statements. And let me read something really quick. We provide an opportunity each meeting for citizen comment in an effort to maintain an open and respectful dialogue with our community. Due to time constraints and the need to complete the primary responsibilities of our meeting agenda, we cannot respond during the meeting, so you will receive a response from us in writing. We are also always available to have an open dialogue outside of our meetings and can be reached by email or telephone using our contact information on the Parkway website. So, and I will call you in order, and you have a couple of minutes to share with us what you have. If any of you have any materials you'd like for the board to read, you can give those to Ms. Stover over here, and she will make sure we each get them. So first up, I have Tanjim Hamika.
Good evening. My name is Tanjim Hamika, and sitting next to me is Anna Sacaro. We are from Parkway South High and representing Teen Voice for a Change. Our goal for this club is to find ways to prevent the use of drugs, especially e-cigarettes, among students. We both would like to thank Dr. Marty, President Todd, and all other board members for allowing us to speak tonight.
As we all know, vaping has been an issue lately in our community. The issue is students who get caught vaping get sent to ISS or OSS after multiple offenses. In these suspensions, it's very easy for students to continue their bad habits, especially at home. We would like to propose that students will listen and sit through lessons during ISS to learn ways to prevent vaping, and after conducting many research and talking with other students, we have concluded that if students require mandatory lessons, then we will see a decrease in juuling products. We want to create an environment where students will not be afraid to quit e-cigarettes and have the resources and support available to do so. In addition, we have created a parent toolkit, which includes information about the risks of drugs, ways to support, and drug tests. The toolkit includes more reliable information about the use of alcohol and nicotine and is a conversation starter for parents. We created toolkits to help parents become more involved and find ways to help their child through their addiction. As of right now, another coalition gave out over 50 kits and only 2 were used for testing purposes. We hope the parent toolkits create communication between teens, parents, and teachers. We would love to have support from Parkway to expand this to other high schools. Thank you again tonight for allowing us to speak.
Thank you. Next, I have Asad Siddiqui.
Good evening. My name is Asad Siddiqui, and I want to thank you again for the ability to speak tonight and address our growing concerns. Growing up in the 21st century, we are surrounded by the thought that a vape or a Juul is more socially acceptable than a cigarette. My friends Anna and Tanjim talked about what we can do for the students and for the parents. However, teachers play a key role in the process as well. As Nelson Mandela said, education is the most powerful weapon that can change the world. We must also educate teachers on e-cigs. I love my 5th-year-old math teacher. He's a great teacher, but he probably doesn't know what a Juul is. And I can't blame him. It wasn't something he grew up with. Juul and other companies are extremely smart at making these devices look like everyday items. We propose the idea of having mandatory training for teachers every year on e-cigarettes and Juuls, on what they look like and the effects. So easily in class, kids are able to pull it out without the teacher knowing, and with the proper education, we can end that. They would be able to create a school atmosphere where we wouldn't be seeing Juuls or vapes in the hallway or the classroom. In today's day and age, educating teachers on e-cigs is just as important as educating them on emergency procedures. What these mandatory lessons would do is educate teachers on what an e-cig is and the effects, and create a better school atmosphere so if teachers know what one is and a kid pulls it out, they know to, get the kid in trouble and tell them to put it away, because so easily in the hallways, in the bathrooms, in classrooms, kids are able to pull out a Juul and the teachers don't know what it looks like, as it looks like everyday common items like a flash drive, as you can see with the thing I passed around. So from Parkway South's Teen Voice for Change, we would like to thank you again. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Shauna Barton.
Good evening. My name is Shauna Barton. I'm standing here once again to talk to you about literacy in Parkway. Each of you acknowledged over a year ago that you would do your research, learn more about dyslexia and reading failure, and look into quality evidence-based literacy programs that have proven to show gains and teach our kids to read, spell, write, and comprehend. One of you even mentioned you had a struggling learner at home. However, we are still here, using whole language, balanced literacy, and leveled reading. While we may have adopted the Barton reading and spelling system as an intervention, only a limited number of kids are able to receive this direct, explicit, systematic, structured instruction. All kids can benefit and strive with structured literacy. Parkway's English MAP scores are staggering, with a range of 48.3% to 84.9% proficient, depending on the school. Having 15 to 52% of our students not proficient in literacy should be alarming. We should be acknowledging our Lucy Calkins curriculum is ineffective, not devising a better way to utilize it. When discussing my concerns about my own child when she was in 1st and 2nd grade, I was told that in 3rd grade, phonics instruction is better. Why should my child have to wait until 3rd grade to get better instruction? Evidence-based instruction should begin in preschool and kindergarten. Now that my daughter is in 3rd grade, she is still not getting structured literacy. Still just a list of words to memorize with an added sheet of rules. However, still no multi-sensory, systematic, explicit instruction on how to utilize this for both reading and spelling. When will we embrace the science of reading and all the data that supports it? We can no longer keep rebalancing our literacy curriculum, which has proven incapable of reaching all of our emerging readers. The research is out there. Neuroscientists have shown what all kids need to learn to read. It's not Lucy Calkins and Fountas and Pinnell. And virtually every school embraces these programs. They leave 40% of our kids behind. That should not be acceptable to our board or our administrators. It's time to recognize the insanity of doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results.
Thank you. Okay, next, may I please have a motion and a second to approve the agenda for the regular meeting of the Board of Education as scheduled for November 13th, 2019?
So moved.
Second.
I'm sorry?
There was a fourth.
She spoke in the first. She was in the first group. We have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. The next regular board meeting will take place on Wednesday, December 11th, 2019, beginning at 7 p.m. here at Central Middle School. The Board of Education will hold its semi-annual workshop meeting on December 4th, 2019 at Parkway's Administrative Center. Next, we have board liaison reports. Start with Matt.
All right, I will mention 2 events I attended, and they're interrelated too. The first one being this past Saturday with Pam. We attended the St. Louis County School Board's professional learning community event, and it was based on trauma-informed schools. And first of all, it was a great turnout among many districts in the county, both from school board members and from superintendents. And the fact that Yeah, so one piece that I really got out of it was with the trauma that both, not just our own students are engaging in and dealing with, but also our teachers and staff too, and the fact that we all have a band of stress level, both high and low, how much we can handle individually. And that when kids act up, they're going above the band. But we also need to recognize too that kids who are pulling back and shutting down are below that band. And we need to help both our teachers and our students deal with the stress levels that are out there, especially those with trauma. How do you help them deal with the issues that are out there? And the other event I attended was Rise Up at South High, and the fact that they had at one point, Debbie was able to make it and Dr. Marty was there too, and the fact that they had a circle of trust where you had 75 students that were part of it, some teachers, actually administration here, part of the event too, and counselors are there also. And the fact that students will step forward when they're sharing their issues, and not only just having the courage to do that in front of all their peers, and just being supported by other students in the room was very powerful. I attended it last year too, and I'm still amazed how quickly these students can share their issues and their challenges they have in their lives, and the support that's immediately given by the other students around them. So I just think that's, as a county, we're looking at the issues around trauma, and both in Parkway too, we're looking at issues of how to deal with it. It's not going to be easy, it's going to take time, but I think there are definitely pathways we're working on both countywide and at Parkway.
As Matt said, I was also at the school board's professional learning community. The presentation was from Alive and Well Community St. Louis, and I'm proud to say that 17 of Parkway's schools are participating in the trauma-informed schools training with Alive and Well. This school boards group is also, we also had breakout sessions on some of the other important issues that all of the school districts in the area are dealing with, anywhere from college and career readiness to equity to social emotional learning. And this was my first meeting with the group, and I think this is a really important initiative that school boards took, so that we're talking to each other and we're working together, recognizing that all of the kids are all our kids, and we need to work together to come up with the best solutions for all of our kids. The other events that I attended, I went to the open house at South Tech last week. I didn't get to see as many of the programs as I would have liked, because I was accompanied by a high school freshman who had one he was interested in, and we spent most of the time in there. But South Tech offers 16 different career and technical education programs. And the program that we visited and spent a lot of time in was the Electronics, Robotics, and Engineering program, and I was so impressed. Those 15 students, well, it's a total of 30, but each class is 15. They come out of that classroom with 3 different career certifications, high school credit, some college credit, and the teacher was very upfront that his goal is that these kids go to engineering school. And he prepares his students to basically be the leaders in the engineering study groups. And I left that building assured that that was happening in all 16 of those programs. I was just so impressed. This particular team, they go to the World First Robotics Championship, and they go up against teams that are sponsored by companies like Boeing and mentored by engineers at Boeing, and they beat them. And it was just very, very impressive, and I encourage everyone to explore what's available to students at South Tech. And finally, on Monday, I was able to go to one Veterans Day program. Unfortunately, the other one I was going to was interfered with by the weather. But I attended the Veterans Day program at West Middle. I was there with my mom and dad because my father's a Vietnam veteran. And I just have to say, I was so impressed by this program. The Student Lighthouse team put it together and presented it. It was 100% student run. And it was an incredibly moving program. And I know that every veteran who was there really appreciated it.
I attended the Veterans Day program at Mason Ridge and participated in it as a veteran as well. There were about 30 veterans overall. Once again, the students basically presented the entire program. It was outstanding. They were outstanding. The choir sang. they developed a song, and it was very, very impressive, of which all the students in the entire school were singing and knew the lyrics. And it was absolutely wonderful. It's wonderful to attend these programs, and it's neat that all of our schools have Veterans Day programs and that are very patriotic and really serve to recognize the veterans that serve our country as well. But it was a delightful experience.
Jeff and Kevin and I had the HR subcommittee meeting last week. Got a quick update on a couple of projects, including how we're going about plans to staff the mental health task force recommendations, and also talked about our process for the HR policy review, which is underway. So that'll be going on this year. We have a process. We're ready to go.
Got assignments.
We got assignments. We got a binder.
Already working.
So it's good. Also, I wanted to update everyone. I mentioned at our last meeting that there were some efforts underway in the county around universal access to early childhood education regionally. So Dr. Marty and I had a chance to meet with one of the leaders of that effort, just coming to tell us more about what they're thinking. And again, this is in terms of increasing the number of spots available to kids across our region for early childhood education. To try to increase equity, among other things, in that. So we let her know that Parkway was very supportive of the efforts. I let them know that I thought that this board would be very supportive of any efforts that are happening regionally in that direction, and Keith spoke for the administration and said the same thing. So that was a good meeting. I'll keep everyone up to date as those efforts move along. And then just wanted to give a little kudos to the transportation team. I see you over there, Will Rosa. Good job. Yesterday's late start was a good call, but threw me for a little bit of a parenting loop. My daughter usually does Adventure Club, so that was gone. Had some meetings I couldn't get out of, so she went to a friend's house and ended up riding the bus, which she was very excited about. And it's such an operation. I think, I called transportation and I said, my daughter's gonna ride the bus. She doesn't normally ride the bus. And they said, what's her name? What's her friend's name? Okay, this is where she's getting picked up. And I said, her name's Claire. And when she got on the bus, the driver said, good morning, Claire. And she was just kind of blown away. So she had a great experience on the bus yesterday. So kudos and thank you.
I could talk about the HR subcommittee meeting all night, but I'm not sure how long we have the room for, so I'll just move on. Like my colleagues here, I also attended a couple of Veterans Day ceremonies at Northeast Middle School and Craig Elementary School. They were both excellent. It's a great opportunity to honor parts of the community at the same time teaching our students about the service, and I was very happy to be a part of those events. The other thing I want to talk about is not something I attended, but something that's going on at my son's elementary school, and his principal, Dr. Duckworth, is here. There's a first grader at Craig Elementary School who was recently diagnosed with a brain tumor, and my wife and I follow along on, there's a website where it gives updates on things that are happening, but in the midst of as difficult a time as that must be for this family, they posted the other day about the efforts that Craig and Parkway are taking to help this kid continue his education and continue to have a normal, as normal a first grade experience as he can. Not just the education part of it, not just lessons, but they've actually fitted a robot with an iPad that's in the classroom so that he can be a part of the classroom, he can control the robot, and he can actually even move around the building. And it's just really, a beautiful thing that the district and the school have done to go above and beyond to help this kid, hold on to something normal in his life and still be a part of his school and his class and his community. And it's just heartwarming to see that in our district and at my son's school.
On Saturday, October the 26th, I attended with several members from administration here the VIC parent meeting, which was conducted at the City Museum. VIC is our voluntary inter-district collaborative, and it was very well attended. It was a terrific venue. The children were invited to attend, and there was childcare there, and everybody had a great time. Alive and Well presented on the topic about mental health and parenting and stress. And then Aaron Schulte and Michael Barilak also made a presentation on the topic of mental health and social emotional well-being. So thank you to Aaron and Michael and Chelsea Watson, Dr. Marty, and all of the team that was there surrounding that. The steppers were also performing from the middle school and the high school as well. And my goodness, they're always fun to watch, and it's all a cappella. They have no music. Everything is done by their own beat. I also attended the Rise Up event, as Matt had reported, and that was my first time attending that. Because of my schedule that day, came in on the very end, so a lot of energy had been expended already, but it was very emotional, even just a little bit that I was there. A lot of circle time that I saw, which is a new up-and-coming way of helping students, and just the sharing that we had in just a brief period of time was just really phenomenal. And then the end, they all got up and danced together and had kind of a getting back together of the minds, if you will. So it was very emotional and a touching day there. Also on that day, I attended the religious leaders meeting with Jeff Todd and Dr. Marty. This is an opportunity for our religious members of our Parkway community to come together with our school district to talk about the calendar, religious observances, observations, things that are going on in the community, a variety of different topics that affect everyone within the Parkway community. So that was a wonderful opportunity. On Monday, October 28th, here at Central Middle School, I attended an evening presentation for parents called Starting the Conversation. Dr. Marty was in attendance at that as well. It was a panel of parents who have experienced helping their children with mental health, mental illness matters. One of the parents had even lost their child to suicide. There was a psychiatrist from Washington University on hand for questions as well. So it was really you learned some tips on how to start a conversation with your own children, your family members. It was difficult to hear some of the stories that we heard that evening, but very important and vital to everything that we're dealing with right now. On Wednesday, October the 30th, I attended an Ed Hub event at the Innovation Hall in the Central West End titled Prepared: What Kids Need for a Fulfilled Life. And this is a book that is written by Diane Taverner, who is the co-founder and CEO of Summit Public Schools that was established in 2003. And they have been awarded as one of America's most innovative public school networks. They have national recognition for their ability to get 99% of their students into four-year colleges and finish college at 2 times the national rate. She was very impressive to talk with. I'm in the process of reading her book and hope to learn from more about what she does. On Friday, November 1st, Jeff and I also attended the Communication Advisory meeting. That's always well attended and vital information that we get from them. I was also pleased to have attended on Wednesday, November the 6th at West Middle. They have Parent University. This is all student-run presentation for their Leader in Me program from Stephen Covey. And each of the, they all presented, they had a different room for each of the 7 habits of highly effective people. And there was a group of students, probably about 4 or 5 students, who each presented on each one of the 7 habits of highly effective people. So parents were asked to select 2 of those habits and go to those. So it was very well attended, and I very much enjoyed watching the students and interacting with them on those presentations. I also attended a Veterans Day assembly at Wren Hollow. Big shout out to the students, the choir, the orchestra, who performed all their patriotic songs and music. There were about 50 veterans there that attended. Several had even traveled from outside of the St. Louis area to be there that day to be honored, and it was a wonderful celebration. I also attended a couple of football games in this very chilly, cold weather. And I just want to say, you know, I know we're going to be hearing a report later this evening about our athletics and activities program. And, you know, kudos to all of our athletes and to thank them for not giving up in difficult times. Those guys really gave it their all. It was cold, it was hard work, and they did not give up. And so to all of our athletes, students, coaches, thank you for all that you do to keep Parkway out there. They were competitive. There's more to learning that comes along with being on these teams and just participating in the sport. It's a whole team organization. There's so many life lessons that come out of these, and so I'll be interested to hear our report later this evening as well.
Thank you. In addition to some of the things that have already been mentioned, I got to participate at the Adventure Club Family Night at Mason Ridge a few weeks ago. It was a national event, and Adventure Club was celebrating a significant milestone of after-school care, and so that was a great event put on by the Parkway Rockwood Community Ed folks there. I also attended the All-District Secondary Vocal Concert a couple of weeks ago, and it was really an outstanding event. Jeff Lackey and his staff put on a great concert. The students just performed wonderfully, both middle school and high school. It was a very enjoyable evening. I also attended Veterans Day celebration at Oak Brook. We had a couple of dozen veterans there. We even had a keynote speaker that was the brother of a staff member who drove up from Springfield, or Jackson, Missouri, and gave a very heartwarming talk about his time in the service and how it changed his life and how he's taken that to new levels. So all very good things. It sounds like we've had a great few weeks, and can't wait to see what the next few weeks bring. So.
I just want to thank the board members and administrators who go out and attend these Veterans Day programs. Our staffs really appreciate it, seeing you there and supporting what I think is one of our really wonderful community activities. I bet with all the schools we honored hundreds of veterans. You all just mentioned that there was quite a few there. I was at Shenandoah, and we actually had a 96-year-old veteran there who was actually involved in the D-Day and had a chance actually to meet Winston Churchill. So you talk about a little walking history there for the students. So that was wonderful. I do want to compliment the snow day. Christy talked about snow days. And Will, is Will still here? I'm up there. Will was up the other morning about 3:30 in the morning driving around and contacted me, and was my first awareness that maybe the roads were a little bit slippery that morning. And it was Will who kind of suggested maybe a late in would be the best thing to do, let the road. So we have Will out there. Ralph Neese was out, and a lot of our people are out and advising us as what the conditions are. So it is kind of a major thought about how we're going to do these, and early release the other day. We always want to make student safety our number one priority, but we also want to get adults home if we can too before the roads get dicey. So we let our staff go the other day too to get them home safe. But thanks for recognizing that, because a lot of people are involved in that and getting our schools ready. Thank you, Jeff.
Yep. The Human Resources Subcommittee meeting, as you heard, was held on November the 7th. Project Parkway Steering Committee meeting will be held next Monday, November 18th at 5:30 p.m. right here at Central Middle School. The Goal 1 Subcommittee meeting will be held on November 21st at 4:30 p.m. at the Nines. Those of you not familiar with the Nines, it's just up the road off of Olive. Next, we have a reasonably long list of action items. So may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented in the November 13th, 2019 board meeting materials?
So moved.
Second.
Is there anything to be pulled to action or closed? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. Next, we have the approval of the audit and comprehensive annual financial report. So I'd like to invite Dr. Patty, not doctor, I just promoted you. Patty Bedborough, our CFO, and Brian Whittle, Director of Finance, and Brian Wirtz, Kerber, Eck, and Brackle, LLP. Welcome, everyone.
Good evening, Mr. Todd, Mrs. Hopper, members of the Board of Education, Dr. Marty. First this evening, before we get into the results of the audit report, I wanted to give a big shout out truly to Brian Whittle and his department for
not only all the preparation that they do in advance to prepare for the audit, but certainly all the compliance work that they make sure is in place throughout the year to ensure that our results at the end of the audit are what our public wants, and that is a favorable audit report. So with no further ado, I'd like to introduce Brian Wertz, and I know Brittany Wolfram is here as well. She was the audit lead on our audit this year. But Brian, if you'd like to present.
Thank you. As Patty said, my name is Brian Wertz. I'm a partner with Kerr, Reck & Breckle and ultimately responsible for the audit of the district. So tonight we're just going to go through the results of the audit. I think I have a, not sure if I know how to work this, but I'll try. Which button is it? Okay. First of all, I had it upside down, so no wonder it didn't work. So the first page, we talk about the summary of the auditor's results as it relates to the financial statements. And with that, every year we always like to talk about what our responsibility is when we perform an audit and what your responsibility or management's responsibility is as it relates to an audit. And it's management's responsibility to prepare the financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles and to determine that the basis of accounting used to prepare the financial statements is appropriate, and to maintain an internal control structure to safeguard the district's assets and to make sure that the financial statements that are presented are free of material misstatement. The basis of accounting used in these financial statements, there's actually two bases of accounting. One, the government-wide financial statements are prepared on the full accrual basis of accounting, which is much like a for-profit entity. And the fund financial statements are prepared on the modified accrual basis of accounting. And then in the financial statements, there's a reconciliation between the two financial statements. The significant differences between the two is debt. So in the fund financial statements, when you issue debt, it's revenue. And in the government-wide financial statements, it's a liability. When you make payments on the debt in the fund financial statements, it's an expense. And in the government-wide financial statements, it's a reduction of liabilities. Same thing with fixed assets. When you purchase a fixed asset under the fund financial statements, it's an expense. And when you do it in the government-wide financial statements, it's a capital asset. So those are the most significant differences. Our responsibility then is to actually, obviously, to prepare the audit and express an opinion on the fair presentation of the financial statements. Because we do not do a 100% test of transactions, we are only given provide reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free of material misstatement, not absolute assurance. We performed our audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards, government auditing standards, and uniform guidance, which is standards as it relates to federal programs. We plan and perform the audit, which includes assessing risk and then preparing audit procedures to address those risks. As we plan the audit, we get an understanding of the internal controls and walk transactions through the internal controls, but we do not give an opinion on the internal controls. That's outside the scope of an audit engagement. As it relates to federal programs, we also test certain internal controls as it relates to federal programs, but again, we do not give an opinion on the internal controls. The type of auditor opinion that we issued this year is an unmodified opinion, which is basically based on our audit procedures. The financial statements are not materially misstated. So as we perform our audit, if there were any deficiencies in the internal control structure, we'd be required to report those to you. A control deficiency is an immaterial weakness in the internal controls. A significant deficiency is a deficiency in the internal control that would warrant a written finding. And then a significant deficiency that is considered a material weakness is a weakness in the internal controls of the district that would make it probable that a misstatement in the financial statements would exist and go undetected. So we're happy to report that we do not have to report any of those this year. The same way goes with compliance as it relates to laws and regulations and contracts as it relates to federal programs. If there are any weaknesses in that as well, we'd be required to report those to you, which we did not have any. This year, we audited the child nutrition cluster, so we're required to audit 20% of the expenditures made by the district, and every major program has to be audited once every 3 years. This year was the child nutrition cluster, which got us the coverage. We only had to audit one program. We gave an unmodified opinion as it relates to that program with no material weaknesses noted and no findings to report under uniform guidance. We are also issuing a report as it relates to Missouri DESE requirements as it relates to attendance, budgetary disbursement procedures, and transportation. Again, we had no issues of noncompliance to report there and gave an unmodified opinion on those as well. Required communications, we're required to disclose this to you as you are the audit committee. The significant accounting policies used to prepare the financial statements is note 1 to the financial statements, and that's listed as significant, or the summary of significant accounting policies. There are significant estimates in these financial statements. The most significant estimates relate to the pension liability and the OPEB liability, and we're required to bring that to your attention because when those liabilities or estimates become reality, they could be significantly different than the estimates that are in the financial statements today. So we're required to make you aware of those. In the financial statements, the pension note is note G, and it's about 10 pages long. And the OPEB is note H, and it's about 2 pages long. So there's a lot of information related to those 2 estimates in the financial statements, and it's pretty cumbersome. There are no transactions that lacked authoritative guidance or consensus. The financial statement disclosures are neutral, consistent, and clear, other than the pension, I would say. We encountered no difficulties in performing the audit, and we had no disagreements with management. There were no financial statements detected as we performed our audit. So basically, if we were doing our audit procedures and we noted a misstatement in the financial statements that required an audit adjustment, we'd be required to disclose that to you, which there were none. As a part of our engagement, we do obtain a representation letter, and that's dated the same date as the audit opinion, which is November 6th, which is the date that all the documentation for the audit has been completed. It's been approved by management and ready to release the financial statements. So any subsequent events that would happen between June 30th and November the 6th, before we issued our financial statements, we have to do subsequent procedures to determine if there was anything that would have to be disclosed or adjusted in the financial statements through that date. Anything after that date, we're not required to review. If management had any consultations with any other CPAs throughout the year, we'd be required to disclose that to you. To our knowledge, that did not happen either. Obviously, we like to express our appreciation to Brian and Patty and the entire district staff. I will say this is my first presentation for the year, which is awesome. I don't know today. Well, obviously the opinion date was November the 6th, so that's June, so July, August, September. I mean, it's pretty quick to get this big CAFR done, everything adjusted, get us out in everything. So they did a great job for us this year, as usual. So. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Well, first, Brian, thank you very much for your time tonight and for your firm and your staff working with our staff to get this completed. I think we're happy to hear the results. Let me ask you a question, though. How do we, in your opinion, how do we compare with other similar-sized districts just overall?
Overall, as far as internal controls, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we audit about, I think, 12 to 15 districts in the St. Louis metropolitan area, and then we also do Columbia, Missouri, and I would say everyone's pretty comparable. You know, we don't usually have any weaknesses in the internal controls of most of the districts that we audit. We have a few that we do, but you're on par with everybody else for sure.
Okay. And you mentioned significant estimates in the net pension liability. Is that common with the other districts you?
Yeah, every district that reports on the full accrual basis of accounting has to put these liabilities in there, and it's their proportionate share of the underfunding of the pension liabilities. And so an actuary comes in and basically does every Missouri school district and allocates that liability to each district. So if you're reporting on the full accrual basis of accounting, you're required to have that in there. So every district in Missouri would have those same estimates.
Thank you.
So I would have a follow-up question to that. Is there any action on the part of the district that needs to be taken to work through that?
The pension?
Mm-hmm.
No, not to my knowledge. I mean, it's, yeah.
Our share of the state's liability changed 3 or 4 years ago when we started reporting. The state has, with actuary, has a budget deficit, and ours is 1.6% of that is allocated to parkways.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's technically underfunded, but they're not asking you to make additional contributions or increasing the rates, and so there's a lot of assumptions in there. So rate of return, the other thing that a couple of years ago they changed the mortality tables, so that increased the liability significantly because people are living longer. So when they do these assumptions, the liability becomes larger because people are living longer. So just little things like that can affect these assumptions or these liabilities.
Like Brian says, we're assuming the states, I mean, we're in this with the state. We don't have, I mean, there are some organizations that have also a significant pension locally, right?
Correct.
Which is, then you're in it deeper.
Could be. Yeah, I mean, we do some for-profits that have the same thing where they're underfunded in these things, but again, they're not asking for additional funding. So I get a little confused as to, well, why is it underfunded, but you're not asking for more money to get this thing funded? And just like you're kicking the can down the road a little bit, but who knows if these things will ever come to fruition, really.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you all very much for your time. So may I have a motion and a second that the Board of Education approve the 2018-2019 audit report as presented in the November 13th, 2019 board meeting materials?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, Nikki.
Ms. Davis? Yes. Ms. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Hopper?
Yes.
Mr. Schindler?
Yes.
Dr. Ciartino?
Yes.
Mr. Seltzer?
Yes.
Mr. Todd?
Yes, motion carries 7-0. Thank you very much, Patty and Brian, and to all your staff for the tireless hours put forth putting all this together.
It was our pleasure.
Because why? Because?
Oh, it wasn't great.
No.
I was looking for your tagline.
Every day.
Oh, every day is a great day.
Yeah. Thank you. Next, we will discuss the approval of boundary changes for Shenandoah Elementary, Highcroft Ridge Elementary, Craig Elementary, McKelvey Elementary, and Ross Elementary. Shenandoah Elementary, Highcroft Ridge Elementary, Craig Elementary. I put it in there. You put it in there twice.
Sorry.
I thought I was repeating myself. So let me please introduce Chelsea Watson, Deputy Superintendent, Paul Tandy, Chief Communication Officer, sorry, Jason Rooks, wherever you are, and Emergency Management Officer, and Patty Bedro, Chief Financial Officer.
All right. Good evening again. Before I get started, I want to acknowledge two of our building principals here tonight who have been just amazing as we have worked through many conversations, and they have engaged in many conversations with their community. So please, I want to recognize Dr. David Duckworth, principal of Craig Elementary School, and Dr. Greg Seacott, principal of Shenandoah Valley Elementary School. So thank you both for all the work that you've been doing in having conversations about the boundary adjustments. So why are we here? It's all about our mission. That's what we talk about each and every day. That's why I come to work every day, and that's why I know that you do what you do to serve the Parkway School District, is to support our children. So if you remember, we were here on October 23rd, 2019, and that was our initial conversation with the board in thinking about boundary adjustments, and we shared some recommendations with you. We have two areas of concern that we need to address. specifically proposing some boundary adjustments, Craig Elementary School and Shenandoah Valley Elementary School. Just a little recap of recommendation for some changes. Ideally, we do not want to shift kids out of their communities and the schools. So the goal, as we looked at what was needed, we looked at moving as few students as possible. As we also looked at the NPUs and we looked at school size and class size, we had to think about the equity of our buildings. As students are being served by teachers, we want to make sure that we do our best. So in one school, a 5th grade teacher is not serving 25 students. In another school, they're serving 18. So as we think about equity and what we want to offer kids, that was one of the things that we really, really looked at. Knowing that we have our 4th graders and they have one more year, one of the pieces of the proposal was to allow the current 4th graders to stay at their schools and also allow their siblings to stay with them for that last year. And we have a Board of Education policy. We have a special assignment process, and so we would not just ignore that policy, but also take into consideration that there may be some individuals who want to apply for special assignment. So since our meeting here on October 23rd, per our board policy, when we talk about possible boundary shifts, we held a parent meeting, and many of you were in attendance at that meeting at Central High School, and we invited the families in the proposed boundary change areas. After that meeting, per the direction of the board, we reviewed again our enrollment projections. And just so everyone knows, we monitor enrollment always. It's an ongoing process. Dr. Nathan Tyson provides us many opportunities and many updates throughout the year as he has a magical formula to project what enrollment will look like. And Nathan has done this for many years, and he is always an A+ student because his projections are always around 98, 99% based on, or the accuracy is about 98, 99% accurate based on the enrollment. As an example, earlier we thought we would need to make some shifts with Henry, but we looked at those numbers again after some initial conversations in the spring, looked at Nathan's numbers, saw some changes there, so we did not bring Henry forward because, again, monitoring that enrollment on an ongoing basis. The latest projections and the projections last month, we continue to see an increase in the 2 schools that we're talking about. The enrollment projections for Shenandoah and the enrollment projections for Craig continue to grow, as we thought based on looking at Nathan's projections, Dr. Tyson's projections. Also, after the parent meeting and conversations, we went back to the table and we looked at a variety of scenarios. How might we be able to have less students move from those impacted areas? Could we do something different and still alleviate the overcrowding at those schools? I promise you, we dotted our I's, we crossed our T's, we ran a number of scenarios to see if we could change the recommendation. And based on the work that we did not find that we could change the current recommendation that is before you. So, pending board approval, what would happen next? Pending board approval, our plan is to contact the impacted families, spell out the process of what's going to happen, when things are going to happen, and also communicate our Board of Education policy on special assignment, because a number of people have asked about that. As always, we will communicate when people ask. But looking at the numbers, there is no guarantee that a special assignment will be approved for either of these schools. And we certainly will not be considering special assignments immediately if the board approves this, because we continue to see enrollment grow, and we have to remember that we are making these shifts for a reason. Now, if by chance there are open seats and we feel we have enough space to approve a special assignment or 2 or 3 or 4 if we receive them, and also ensure that resident enrollment will be taken care of, we will look at that, just like we look at special assignment process all year long for many, many years. But it may be possible in a particular grade level and not in others. It may not be possible at all. We continue to monitor the enrollment, and we will continue to monitor the enrollment if you proceed with the recommendations. In addition, the principals of the receiving schools will be looking and planning transition activities, because we know it is so important to welcome families into their new school if this shift is going to happen, and to start allowing them to embrace and learn and meet other kids, other parents, and be engaged in concerts and carnival events and carnival nights and things that happen throughout the winter and the spring. Another key piece that I want to make sure that everyone knows is one of the key pieces of the transition activity will be making sure that the receiving schools know the students that they will be receiving. I'm going to give you an example that happens every single year as we shift from elementary to middle and middle to high. Our principals and our counselors have conversations about every single child as we transition kids from 5th grade to 6th and from 8th to 9th. That will happen if you approve the boundary changes. The same thing will happen. Our administrators, our counselors will meet with the receiving schools and talk about the kiddos. If students have a 504, if students have an IEP, the receiving school will be invited to the current home school when those meetings are held and be a part of that team. If students have specific intervention plans, behavior plans, the receiving school will have all of that information, because our goal is to make sure that students are most successful when they go to their new school. So please know that we will do everything in our power to make sure this transition is smooth, that families feel welcomed, and that kids feel welcomed, and our families and students feel supported. Any questions, any comments? And any of us are here for you, answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Well, first, I would like to thank you and Patty and a number of other people. I know Nathan's been involved, and I know Paul's been involved. I know the board has asked a lot of questions, more so than a lot of things we see. We've asked for additional data, and you've provided everything that we've asked for, all sorts of supporting information. I do have one specific question. Have you considered some type of unique formula or some way to fair and equitably choose the students, how you would choose a student that may be faced with, if you get a list of 10 kids that want a special assignment to a particular school, how are you going to determine who gets to go?
Yes, so as we look at enrollment and as we look at special assignments, we always look at how many seats might be available for special assignments. And so based on what we're hearing, again, a lot of families want to remain in their home school. So if we have parents who request special assignments for their students, and let's say we have 10 open seats, and we have 15 families apply for that same grade level, and we cannot accommodate 15 clearly, Dr. Tyson will run a random selection program. So we will input all of the students who have requested special assignment into this beautiful program that Dr. Tyson will run. And the program will randomly select students, and we will rank those students by rank order. Here's the first student that the computer has drawn, sort of like a lottery, second, third, and fourth. We will start with the current third graders. Those students will have been in the school the longest, because next year they will be fourth graders. So we will start with the current fourth graders. If there are fourth graders who have requested special assignment and there's seats available that we can offer, we will then contact that family and let them know that we have a seat for that student. Because one of the things we always want to do is keep families together, we will then look at that fourth grader to see if there are any siblings in the school. If there are siblings in the school and the parent has also requested special assignment for the sibling, and if there are seats available in that other grade level, we will offer that seat to that sibling, because we don't want to break up families if we don't have to. Then, if there's another seat, we'll go to the second person that the system has randomly drawn. We have talked about a transparent process with this, and so we are thinking that we will ask the principals, along with Dr. Tyson and Dr. Greg Matheson, along with inviting PTO presidents of the schools and the PTO vice president to the principal's office on a particular date. Dr. Tyson can run that program at that point in time, so the process can be as transparent as possible. So that is our current thinking as to how we would go about determining who gets the limited seats, if there are any available seats.
Okay, thank you.
I have, I guess, more of a comment. Being a school board member, there's lots of fun things you get to do, graduations and HR subcommittee meetings. And this is one of the harder things, because obviously parents feel very, very strongly, and students feel strongly about their schools. And I wouldn't want this to look like there's a presentation, we take a vote, and there wasn't deliberation or consideration on the part of the school board, because that's far, far, far from the case. This has been a process that's been ongoing, and I can only speak for myself, but I feel like the district, the administration, everyone, we recognize that there was a need. We've got schools that are exceeding capacity, and we owe it to the students and the teachers in those buildings to adjust things so that they can perform their roles and the tasks expected of everyone. And something has to give, and there's some students that are going to be displaced by this if we approve it. But this is public education, and we're all in this together. And I can sleep easy knowing that this district, the administrators, and this board take this decision very, very seriously, and have explored every possible option and have come up with the best, most workable proposal for this. And so I commend everybody that was involved, and I certainly empathize with the parents and students that are affected. But I do feel like the process was carried out in a very intentional and empathetic manner, and so I'm happy to. Anyway, that's my piece.
Thank you. Thank you.
I would also add, along with Kevin, this has been a very difficult decision, and listening to parents and students, and we all, as a parent, you want what's best for your child. But as I do look at these, the space limitations, I really feel very strongly that this is not the best learning environment for our children, for our students, especially in the special education areas, and seeing the rooms, the math intervention room in one of these, it's appalling, and it's not Parkway proud. And so I too feel like you guys have, at our request, turned these numbers every which way you could possibly turn them, upside down, inside out, every which way, to make sure that we don't have any other choice than this. And I'm confident that the students are going from one great school to another great school, and they're going to be taken care of, and we will make sure that that happens. All that to say, also, lessons have been learned in past boundary change efforts, and this particular time, one of those lessons is to grandfather those fourth graders so that they're not moving their last year as a fifth grade student to a new school. That's a lesson learned from the past that is being implemented this year, and I commend the district for taking that on, because that, was a lesson learned, and we'll probably learn lessons out of this one too at some point, and we'll move forward with that in the future. But I'm a huge advocate of small class sizes as much as possible, and if we don't do this, we won't be where we need to be to make sure that our students are getting the attention that they need to learn. And elementary school is so vital to be able to make sure that our students are getting that attention and that intensive learning. So I do commend you and thank you. Even just yesterday, you were coming back to us again with more information on how the numbers were run, and this is where we're at, and enrollment's going to continue to grow in these areas, and we need to be attentive to that and responsive to the betterment of our students. So thank you for continuing to look at that.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. So at this time, I have a motion and a second that the Board of Education approve the boundary changes for the Shenandoah Elementary, Highcroft Ridge Elementary, Craig Elementary, McKelvey Elementary, and Ross Elementary schools as presented in the November 13th, 2019 board materials.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, Nikki.
Ms. Davis?
Yes.
Ms. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Hopper?
Yes.
Mr. Schindler?
Yes.
Dr. Ciartino?
Yes.
Mr. Seltzer?
Yes.
Mr. Todd?
Yes. Motion carries 7-0. Now,
I just want to say that one of the things that we're going to do, and we'll do it immediately, as you heard Dr. Watson say, we will communicate with the parents, and we'll begin to also get our principals, our sending principals, our receiving principals together and start talking about real thorough communication of activities. Most of them will probably start in January in terms of transition, but we certainly welcome, as we learned in the past, that we really want to do everything we can to make the families, both the parents and the students, feel welcome. So we will do our utmost to live through that and make sure that by late spring, early summer, people are looking forward to their new setting.
good. Good to hear. Next, could I please call on Mr. Carter Snow, Coordinator of Student Assessment, for our 2019 Achievement Report.
It's helpful when Dr. Watson's up here before me. Don't have to adjust it much. Good evening, President Todd, Vice President Hopper, members of the board, Dr. Marty, Mrs. Stover. It is my pleasure to present to you the 2019 Annual Achievement Report. This report provides information on the accountability measures the state and Parkway uses to monitor progress. Under the 5th cycle of Missouri School Improvement Program, our performance is rated on 5 standards. Those standards are student achievement, subgroup achievement, college and career readiness, attendance, and graduation rate. Tonight, you will see evidence of how MSIP 5 and achievement on state exams relates to our strategic plan and measurable objectives. You're probably very familiar with those measurable objectives, and you'll also know that some of these things are not easily measured on state tests. Things like students being kind, understanding the views, values, and cultures of others, asking meaningful questions. Tonight, our focus will be on measurable objective 6, which is all about meeting or demonstrating growth on state and local academic benchmarks. So we'll dive right in. Standard 1 is all about the Missouri School Improvement Program and student achievement. Student achievement is measured in math and ELA in grades 3 through 8, and as well on the Missouri end of course exams in high school. Science is measured in 5th grade, 8th grade, and in high school biology. And last year was the first year of new operational science assessments, so those results were a little bit delayed, and we'll present them as an addendum to tonight's performance reports. Achievement in government, or I'm sorry, achievement in social studies is measured with a government end of course exam, and that test was new last year, aligned to new standards, so it was a field test. We will not get those scores back, unfortunately, to report back to you. This year, students, in fact, will be taking that test in just about a month, and we will have those scores by next fall. So before we dive into our results, it's also important to note that there have been many significant changes to our assessment system over the past 4 years. Those changes, along with long delays in receiving scores, make it pretty difficult to monitor progress from one year to another. A lot of what you'll see tonight and in the full review is a comparison from Parkway to the state, just as a proxy for us to monitor progress, because year over year progress is very difficult to ascertain with only 2 years of data. Next year we'll be in a better place to really show year over year progress. Finally, you probably already know how we hold ourselves accountable. It's a measure called MPI. I'll do a quick primer on that. It is the number of students advanced times 500, the number of students proficient times 400, basic times 300, below basic times 100. You divide by the total number of students and you get a 3-digit number that equals our MPI, or MAP Performance Index. So obviously if all of our students were proficient on the state exam, we would have an MPI of 400. So our results. In 2019, the MAP Performance Index for ELA was 379.3, which was slightly lower than 2018. In math, the MPI remained the same as in 2018. Again, a direct comparison from the school years prior to 2018 and after is not advisable, as there was a pretty significant change in assessment that year. We also see that male and female students perform very comparably in mathematics. In ELA, female students outperformed their male counterparts. This local trend is representative of a larger national trend by gender, which somewhat bucks the common stereotype around performance of males and females. But that seems to be a national issue that we're seeing in Parkway as well. Standard 2 is related to gap group achievement. The gap group, sometimes referred to as the super subgroup, is comprised of the following students. So students who are learning English as a second language, students with an IEP, students on the free and reduced lunch program, African American students, or Hispanic students. So if you fall into one of those groups or multiple of those groups, you are technically in the gap group for accountability purposes. For context this evening, the following slides will show how Missouri students in the gap group performed with compared to Parkway students also in the gap group. And finally, how those students performed when compared to the total Parkway average. So we'll see the Missouri students in the gap group, Parkway students in the gap group, and then all Parkway students. In the following slides, you'll observe that Parkway students in the gap group continue to outperform similar students in the state. That being said, our mission states that all students will be capable, so we expect there to be no gap over time. We are committed to continue problem solving and action by all educators on the behalf of students to address gaps in achievement. One small action we're taking is recognizing that we cannot solely define our achievement gap by a single test once per year. In collaboration with Student Services, we are building a dashboard that will monitor the impact of our strategic actions to reduce the gaps in achievement, access, opportunity, and educational attainment. So we can use information that's a little bit more readily available to us that we can act on more frequently. So how did students in the gap group do? So in ELA, students in the gap group continue to perform below the level of their peers. The difference between all Parkway students and students in the gap group increased slightly. In math, the difference between all Parkway students and students in the gap group decreased slightly. So in other words, that gap shrank very slightly in 2019 compared to 2018. So still an achievement gap. In ELA, it widened a hair. In math, it shrank a hair. Continued work to be done. Standard 3 is all about college and career readiness. Another question we attempt to answer for the purpose of accountability and meeting mission is how well are students prepared for college and career? In other words, life beyond Parkway. The ACT provides one measure of readiness for college and career, and as you can see, Parkway scores are well above both the national and state average. In fact, the class of 2019 scored a 23.4, the highest average score Parkway students have achieved since we began testing all of our juniors. So quite the accomplishment. Students taking advanced placement tests is another way we can measure success in college and career readiness. We had over 1,300 students take over 2,600 AP exams. That number continues to climb in terms of number of exams taken in the 2018-19 school year. And also proud to present that still over 80% of our students are achieving a score of a 3, 4, or 5, which would gain them potentially credit in that college course. The blue line represents the number of tests taken, and the red line is the number of students who take exams. This past year, we did start to see a leveling out in terms of the increase in number of students taking exams, and we're working hard with our equal opportunity schools to really dive into that and figure out why those initial jumps in number of students taking AP exams is starting to level out, and working with our high school principals and staff on that. Standard 4 is about student attendance. Attendance is calculated by determining the percent of students who attend 90% of the time or more. So in Parkway last year, 93.4% of students attended 90% of the time or more. That's a bit of a tongue twister. Far exceeding the 90% target for the state. And finally, we have graduation rate. Last year, we saw 95.6% of our students graduate in 4 years. That's the highest rate we've achieved in the past 7 years. So the state does measure a 4-year rate, a 5-year rate, a 6-year rate, and a 7-year rate, and they use the best of those rates. I believe our 5-year rate was very high, but of course, we want our students to graduate upon a normal time frame as 4 years. So we achieved a very high rate of 95.6. Of course, the goal is 100, but we're slowly getting that way. So in conclusion, we are proud of our students, teachers, and staff in contributing to our overall high achievement. I'm personally proud of our staff's commitment to continue to grow until we meet a mission for each and all of our students. And as I always conclude, data, of course, they don't always provide answers. They ask us help better questions. So what questions do you have for me tonight?
Well, first I'll just say thank you for keeping tabs on all this data. I've enjoyed, as weird as it may sound, I've enjoyed learning about this data through the project, the Project Parkway Steering Committee you've presented a number of times, and then during my time on the board as well. The numbers generally look good. You mentioned the ACT that we're at I think our highest level in 12 years, or since we've been measuring, at least since all students have been taking it.
Correct.
What percentage of schools across the state and across the country are also taking it, all the students, all the graduating seniors or juniors during that year?
Believe it or not, I have a dashboard on that for the state of Missouri. Nationally, ACT is probably more represented in the Midwest and to the West. SAT can be more of an Eastern test. And obviously there are companies competing for market share. And so for Missouri, there are a number of districts that test over 90% of their students. We are one of those districts that does that, continued that commitment since the state no longer made it a part of their assessment plan. So I do kind of keep an eye on where we rank in terms of other districts and specifically districts that are testing majority of their students and kind of where we would slot into that. So I don't know the specific number off the top of my head, but remembering the dashboard, it's well over 30, 40 districts statewide that continue to assess most of their juniors.
Okay. Thank you.
On the achievement gap, do we know of any districts that are like knocking it out of the park in terms of, or making significant progress in closing it? Like, are we starting to see any model programs coming about?
It's a fantastic question. This is not something that only Parkway is committed to. This is every district across the state. And so I can speak to a few instances where we really look at, when we're problem solving, which schools within Parkway or even outside of Parkway are beating the norm, right? And the norm, unfortunately, is that there is an achievement gap. So which schools might be outperforming? I can speak to a specific example with high school algebra in one of our schools, actually doing learning walks in other districts, neighboring districts recently, to really learn, wow, your schools look a lot like ours. You seem to be doing a little bit better than us. Let's learn about some of those strategies, some of those curriculum action steps that you're taking to really address that, and then what can we bring back to Parkway? So it really has been this nice collaboration with more than 4 other districts where they've invited us into their buildings to learn from them, and of course we extend the offer as well, and they come and do so as well. So that's been a great opportunity for us to really dive in and say, we're all in this together. We can establish partners, and we do see some schools that are doing a little bit better than us, but nobody that's closed that gap entirely, and so that continues to be all of our challenge.
Is there so I was disappointed to see some of the stats on our three lowest performing, the free and reduced lunch, the Black students, and students with an IEP continue to keep going down. So, I mean, is there a plan of action to invest more resources into these areas? I mean, we keep throwing resources at the high achieving students. We're doing more AP courses. We're doing more Wildwood Community College. Trying to get kids with their college education. What are we doing for these bottom performers?
Yeah,
we don't hear, and I know you're just a messenger here.
No, that's okay. This is part of my role.
It's just, and to speak to the, it's just frustrating.
Well, that feeling that I think we all have when we see those numbers is legitimized when we get to see kids in classrooms, right? And so we know that each of those numbers is a student, and we see students in classrooms not achieving. We also see teachers working incredibly hard with a variety of methods to work on addressing that, but we're clearly still not there.
Right.
And so without listing a whole smorgasbord of things that we are engaged in conversation daily about, I would say that one of those things we're doing specifically elementary right now from my lens is we're really working with building teams on what we call PM&I cohorts, so progress minor intervention cohorts that are really that building kind of air traffic control to identify where do we have students not achieving. Why do we think students are not achieving in this area? What do we need to think about in terms of our structure, in terms of interventions that might support these students? And then how do we monitor their progress to ensure we're closing that gap right away? And so in that work with these buildings this past year, that's been really exciting for us to dive into that tangible action step to meeting students' needs who aren't necessarily being served in the classroom every day in the way that need to be served. So it really is a continual improvement process. I don't believe there exists one solution to address it. It's going to take lots of different solutions, but continued hard work and problem solving. So that's certainly one way we're addressing it. Of course, in middle school, we're looking at middle school ELA specifically, a slightly different problem solving methodology to look at instruction and curriculum. We're seeing a bit of a drop between the state performance and Parkway performance, so looking at why that might be. But it is certainly a multi-pronged approach. And I certainly don't want to stand in front of you, even as the messenger, next year and continue to see students of color, students with an IEP, students on free and reduced lunch continue to perform below their peers, their friends, right?
To your earlier point, given that this is a regional, it's not just Parkway, like, I'm glad that we're looking to other districts to see who's doing well and what we can learn together. And I mean, the tie between this and our mental health work, I think, is strong too, because if you're a kid that is working your tail off and just not having the results that your peers are having, your self-worth starts to take a hit. So
right, and that's why we really look towards growth, and so that At the end of the day, teachers are working incredibly hard for their kids, and so are administrators. And once we can start to actualize and see the results, the fruits of our hard labor, that is motivational for all of us, just as it is for kids as well. And so we really want to design that dashboard focused on that achievement gap to get more real-time data in terms of closing that gap down in the area of achievement, opportunity, access, attainment, so we can use those results to really monitor our own progress as a district rather than rely on once-a-year state assessment to do so.
Just, we had a little workshop at one of our superintendent at Plus meetings, and there was some data shared that one of the real difficulties sometimes in the achievement gap is we don't have a static student population. So if, with increased mobility, a lot of the students that are here longer times achieve because of the interventions, the work we put in place. If we get a student who's not been with us very long, we have a limited amount of time before their state testing. So Carter's right. I think a lot of our work is around what we can do to onboard them and find out what their needs are, and not just rely on the state exams. I mean, I'm frustrated every time I see those achievement gaps, as anybody else is. But the reality is that sometimes those students have been with us for a long time. I mean, I'm not saying that's universal, but and then present various needs that may be around attendance and other issues. So it's not like we can pocket a normal student here. There's a lot of different factors, but we certainly take it seriously, as Carter said, and we really want to make sure we're are really up against this as we take on the issues that we have to. When the students are here, we have to go to work. And I will say a lot of our principals are doing a really good job of assessing students as they come into the school and getting those interventions there early.
Well, we know that the special school district is conducting an audit also, so I'm hoping that there would be some recommendations that come out of that may be identified to help our students with IEPs and 504s that haven't been identified, or find new ways of addressing the learning efforts of those students and ways we might be able to improve that.
Certainly partners in our work. We really need one comprehensive, proactive system of intervention and support, and we're best off in that area if we're partnered very tightly with our special school district colleagues.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Carter.
Thank you.
Next, we have a work session with Mr. Mike Roth, Director of Athletics and Activities. We'll hear about the program evaluation.
Thank you, Dr. Morty, Board President Todd, board members. It's my honor and privilege to be here tonight. I know it's been a long evening, and it's my honor and privilege to be here to give a preliminary report and have discussion on our program evaluation for athletics and activities. To my knowledge, we have not done one of these before in Parkway. I certainly welcome the challenge. We certainly have a rich tradition of activities and athletics in Parkway. So let me begin my program, and hopefully I can work this. Bingo. As you can see, we are a member of the Missouri State High School Activities Association. We offer 23 different athletic programs, many activities also in Parkway. We have a rich tradition. We are in the process of closing our fall season. I know you mentioned about the football game last week. Yes, it was very cold. We had one playoff game that we hosted at Parkway West last week, and I was fortunate to be in Columbia, Missouri for the State Cross Country Championships. We had all 4 schools represented there. And this weekend, actually tomorrow and Friday, we will conclude the fall season finally with our state championships, swimming and diving. We'll be out at the Recplex. We have 57 student athletes participating in Parkway among the 4 high schools. So certainly we're going to be well represented. For the last 2 weeks, this is week 2 of our winter season, so we started basketball practice, we started wrestling, girls swimming started last week, so those contests will be underway, I believe, right around Thanksgiving break. And then our spring season, we offer 9 sports in the spring. Believe it or not, 110 days from today, we will start practice for our spring sports. So it'll be here before you know it. We're also very fortunate in Parkway to offer many different activities that are also sanctioned by Misha. We have a strong, rich history of musical performances in Parkway, including our band, choir, and orchestra. We also offer academic competitions in our Scholar Bowl activities. We also have strong programs in speech, debate, and theater, different competitions there. And then obviously our spirit groups, our cheer and dance also compete at the Misha level. So we're certainly honored and privileged to have all those organizations. So as I begin this program, I met very closely with our building athletic directors and other leadership support in the academic arena in Parkway, and just kind of had some guided questions that I'm really looking at, and certainly I want to have more input by the board tonight if there's another direction that you'd like me to go. But some of the areas that we like to explore is our analysis of our participation numbers throughout the years, where we're at this year compared to last year, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. All those numbers we'll look at. There's great records in Parkway. Don Sparks, Gerald Lindeman, and Mike Gahn. There's records from the 50s, late 50s, when we started our competitions that are all right there. So I'll be pulling some data from there. Also, we want to look at our academic performance, our GPA of our student athletes that are in season in regards to athletics and athletic competition. See where they're at compared to the general student population. We're also going to take a look, a very heavy look, kind of evaluating our coaches. You know, are they meeting the needs of our student athletes, of our parents, of our community? We have over 300 coaches and sponsors in Parkway that spend countless hours with our student athletes. But what can we do to help them, to improve things, to help it be more of a positive experience for our student athletes? So we'll certainly do an analysis and evaluation of our coaches and sponsors. We'll also look at some of the Misha emerging sports. So you're probably saying, what's an emerging sport? Basically, an emerging sport is something where there's less than 50 high schools across the state that participate. Examples in Parkway include boys volleyball, girls lacrosse, water polo, and field hockey. So what can we do to develop those programs in Parkway, develop those programs throughout the St. Louis area, and also across the state? Misha does not offer a state series in those. We basically run our own tournaments, so we're trying to grow the sport and develop it across the different regions of the state. I'll also look at, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier, examine our end-of-season reports. We have great data from years past, so we'll look at the records of not only our coaches and our athletes, but how many student athletes lettered and how many were involved. And again, those records go back for many, many years. We'll also do a examination and analysis of our clubs and activities that we offer at the middle school level and also at the high school level. So besides our Misha sanctioned athletics and activities, we have countless clubs that we also participate in. One that's just gaining really a lot of momentum is our esports in the gaming community. And those are kids maybe who are not involved right now presently at the high school, but it's amazing talking with other folks. If you can put a school jersey on them and have them represent that school and be a part of the community, how much it just builds their self-confidence. So we'll look at all those areas throughout the next couple of months. And speaking of that, my timeline, so last couple of months, I've spent some time just gathering information regarding our main topics and our guided questions, reviewing past data, obviously presenting at the board tonight. If you have any additional comments at the end, I'll certainly entertain those. And I'll use the month of December, January, and February to distribute surveys to various stakeholders. Those will be our student athletes, our parents, our coaches, our administrators throughout Parkway, and just really gather information, working very closely with Nathan Tyson's office on research management. Analyzing in March the survey results, develop our main findings, and make a recommendation report in March, kind of shore that up. And then I'll be back in April to present to the board our main findings and any recommendations that we may have for the Board of Education. So again, if there's any guided questions or any other information that you'd like for me to look at, I certainly can do that, and we'll entertain those thoughts right now. I just want to say I am so very proud to be in Parkway all these years, and so proud of our 4 building athletic directors and the commitment and the countless hours they spend with our student athletes, and the sponsors and coaches spending, again, countless hours away from their families to give to our student athletes in Parkway. So it really takes a special person, I think, to be a part of our fraternity that we're in, and I certainly am honored to be here representing the Parkway School District. So at this time, if there's any other guided questions or any issues or anything that you'd like for me to entertain in the next couple of months, I'm certainly open to any and everything. Yes.
Well, I'll throw one in. First of all, I think it's a great undertaking, and obviously it sounds like it's has nothing like this has been done in a while. I think it's a great idea. The one thing I saw missing that probably could be approached is safety. And when I bring that up in 2 separate arenas, safety for the individual athletes themselves, as far as giving parents and students an idea of rates of injuries and different activities, the safety precautions are undertaken. Because I know as a parent of young kids, something we think about a lot is football in particular. And there's a lot of parents that struggle with should we or shouldn't we allow that. And I think Parkway-specific information might be real helpful to some of those parents. What Parkway is doing to promote safety that could make parents feel better about that particular decision. And then the larger safety issue that was sort of highlighted earlier in the fall, as far as what we're doing and what we can do to make sure that everyone who's in attendance at all of our events feels safe and secure as well. So I think those are one issue with 2 prongs I think would be well served.
Absolutely. Ironically, Misha actually conducts a study through the National Training Organization. So we actually report back the number of injuries to Misha. Obviously, we have our certified athletic trainers that are at our schools every single day for practices and all contests, and everything is logged and collection of data there. So I can pull those reports from Misha, also from the National Federation, the national governing body, look at injury reports there too. And certainly, with athletic events, activities, just every day in school, we're always examining what can we do to make our events, our school settings more enjoyable, more positive, and just a better environment for all student athletes, for parents, for community members, and for our opposing teams, and also for the officials. That's another thing maybe I want to look at too. There's a shortage that we have with our officials. It's getting harder and harder to get people to come and help and work, and obviously we can't have our contests without our officials too. So that's another area that is gaining some momentum. What can we do to help grow the sport, and more importantly, what can we do to make things safer? So thank you for that recommendation.
I'll kind of add on to that then too. We actually had this discussion this past Saturday with the other school districts, was with participation in football. I'm curious to see with your study what the trend lines are and how we respond as a district because of all the other add-on activities that come along with football, whether it be the band, cheerleading, dance, the various groups that raise money at the games, how all those things could be affected by a drop of participation among the football programs. Obviously, a Parkway South parent, there were some challenges this year. And how's that trend line going to look going forward? How we deal with it?
Certainly. We have, as you know, our numbers are decreasing across the board in football. And it's not just a Parkway issue. Across the St. Louis area, across the state, even nationally, it's competing. We're a member of the Suburban Conference. We have 31 schools, and there's very few that now offer 3 levels, meaning freshman, JV, and varsity. And it just used to not be like that. But that's the day and age that we live in. So certainly those numbers, in my eyes, and I've got a history in athletics with football, and to me it's alarming what's going on, and I think it gets back to the earlier question about safety. What can we do to help these student athletes and their parents make sure it's a safe and positive environment for them? So certainly we'll look at those things, without a doubt.
I'm thinking about our last report and the groups of students that are part of kind of the subgroup with the achievement gap. And is there a way to look at whether or not they're participating in either athletics or activities? So I'm thinking about those kids and if they are feeling part of the school, if they're struggling academically and then also aren't feeling part of the school community by participating in something.
Some engagement.
Yeah.
Right.
So is there a way to look at participation numbers of those groups of students related to this to just get a better picture of their engagement in the community.
I think we'll certainly examine that, and I'll rely heavily on Nathan Tyson and his office for support there, but that's something we definitely need to look
Great.
at.
Yeah, I think that'd be helpful.
I think maybe going along with that, Mike, is there are there some barriers that maybe we're not aware of? I know we talk a lot about equity in the districts, but are there barriers that prevent students, whether it's distance and cost and, that we really need to learn more about? So I kind of going along with that, because we may learn that unintentionally there's some barriers that prevent students or parents from being able to have participation.
Absolutely. We'll certainly look at all endeavors. So.
And I would also add, once they're in the sport, and I know parents are always told, don't talk about playtime. But yet, we hear about, some students and some kids have dropped out of some of the sports because they're just not getting playtime. And so I don't know if that's part of what you're planning to ask in your survey of parents and students, their satisfaction with that, because they're investing time, money. They're giving up other activities so that their students can go there, and it's not just it runs the gamut with all these sports as to play time that the students get.
Absolutely. So we'll certainly look at that. And that's something that we talk about continually with our coaches. What can we do to make this a more positive, enjoyable experience for kids? And for some people, yeah, they're out there on the field all the time. Others, their role is a support, is there in practice, and they're on a special team. But what can we do to attract those student athletes to the sport and retain them? And I think that's very important. Our numbers in one sport, may be down, and they are. But a number of sports, they're just expanding, and it's great that participation we have in tennis and wrestling is ballooning this year. We recently, Misha has sanctioned, we now have at the state level a competition for the girls in wrestling, and we have, I think, 3 over 4 high schools have females that are wrestling this year, which is tremendous. So it's a good problem to have when those numbers are expanding. We don't have enough tennis courts for our athletes, but we're making do. We're having split practices, and we're just trying to be creative in all aspects to attract our student athletes and retain them too. And I think that's just a part of the whole experience of high school athletics and activities. So we'll certainly entertain those endeavors.
And does all of the sports here that are identified as Misha sanctioned sports, is this everything that Misha sanctions as sport? Are these only the ones at Parkway?
No, those are the activities. Parkway participates in every athletic event that's offered by Misha.
Okay.
There are some other activities. I think archery and bass fishing, I believe, are actually sanctioned activities by Misha. We currently don't have those. A lot of schools down by the lake and southern part of the state offer those. We do not currently in Parkway, but certainly we can entertain those. And just like our clubs at the high schools, when there's an interest, we look into things. So there's something there too. But yeah, we participate in 23 athletic programs, all sponsored by Misha.
I know West started a fishing club a couple of years ago.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. I think they go right across the street.
It'll grow.
Yeah.
The homecoming parade. It'll float.
There you
go. Your surveys, I assume you're going to survey all of your stakeholders, or are you going to just target just a representative percentage? Or
no, we like to get as many voices to the table as possible. Okay. Yes.
And by clubs, I assume you mean things not just your e-sports, but like hockey and
we have math clubs, we have chess clubs, we have you name it. If there's an interest, and if we can get a sponsor at the high school, we form a club.
Sure.
And again, I think it's just getting students active and making them feel a part of a team or a group. I think that's very important. I think that goes a long way.
Well, and Matt kind of made a mention of it, but some of the things that go along with these sports, whether it's school spirit or the other clubs or sports that kind of accompany it, those are important. But even more than that, besides just learning a sport, besides being a member of a team, I know a number of our coaches go way beyond the the coach level in their building of character, in their unifying of a team by team building exercises? Are you going to look at some of those things that coaches do that are over and above just teaching a sport?
Obviously, team building, morale of the program, professional development by coaches, as it is for teachers, is vitally important. So we'll certainly look at that. And, I think about Friday night football game. It's more than a game. To me, it's a community coming together. It's the band, it's the cheerleaders, it's the dancers, it's the booster club, it's the grill going, with that smell of the charcoal. I think that experience and just the morale we have in the student body is a tremendous experience, and I think it's such a positive experience, and activities and athletics go a long way towards that. So appreciate your time. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next anticipated closed session will be held on Wednesday, December 11th, 2019 at Central Middle School. Details of the closed session will be posted within 24 hours of the anticipated meeting. We are finished with our closed session that we had previously, so now may I have a motion and a second to adjourn the regular meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0.